Contract purchase over 42 months when financed through Toyota Financial Services by 30th of September 2020. Deposit of £10,157 required. £12,775 optional final payment. Indemnities may be required. 5-year, 100,000-mile manufacturer warranty. Conditions apply.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P has come off earlier losses. It opened lower in the wake of a report that weekly U.S. jobless claims stayed above 1 million. The stock's Europe 600 extended its decline. The pound held on to losses after the Bank of England expanded its quantitative easing program. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P is little change, down 1. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 0.1%, down 32. And the NASDAQ is up 0.1%, up 9. The 10-year is up 12.30 seconds with a yield of 0.69%. West Texas Intermediate crude has reversed course. It's in the green, up 1% at 38.36 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.5% at 17.2630 an ounce. The dollar yen is 106.83. The euro is $1.1224, and the British pound $1.2428. U.S. mortgage rates dropped to a record low for the fourth time since the coronavirus began roiling financial markets earlier this year, and they may not have much more room to fall. The average for a 30-year fixed rate loan was 3.13%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Bonnie Quinn on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning. We are back. Looking at the market here again, let's just step back a little bit. You think back to mid-March when this all began. The market sank about 35%. It's since retraced a lot of that move coming off the bottom, driven in large part by a Federal Reserve that has really been aggressive in putting liquidity into the market. The question now for a lot of investors is, what's the next step? To help us answer that question, Lisa Shallett, Chief Investment Officer, Wealth Management at Morgan Stanley. They have about almost $2.5 trillion of client assets. She joins us on the phone. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us once again. What are you hearing from? Great to have you. What are you hearing from your clients right now? Do they feel like, oh, gee, I missed out on this rally, or I don't believe this rally? What are you hearing most often from the Morgan Stanley clients?
Yeah, I think from our clients, and I think it's quite typical of many private wealth clients, is a continued level of skepticism. Skepticism that the country is, quote unquote, in the clear with regard to the virus, skepticism that, the market is reflecting the economic reality that they see on the ground, and really skeptical about the longer term. I mean, don't forget, our typical client is someone that's probably over 55, over 60, and they have some historic perspective, and so they're asking us a lot of questions about what are the implications longer term of this rapid money growth by the Fed, of the exploding deficits and debt, and so I think that there is large amounts of cash on the sidelines, which is certainly a constructive element for this market. But our clients, for the most part, are holding back, and I think that they're waiting for a little bit more evidence that things are truly improving, and that profits are catching up to this market, which has anticipated a lot of recovery already.
Lisa, are they not then embracing the V-shaped recovery narrative? And in that situation, did the Fed chair give them all the more ammunition to not embrace that?
Yeah, so we definitely we're writing about this. So look, my team and the folks on the Global Investment Committee at Morgan Stanley have been trying to lay out that narrative and explain to folks and our clients that the way markets work is it's not about the level, it's all about rates of change, and it's all about upside surprises. And if you get positive rates of change and upside surprises, markets tend to go up and climb the wall of worry. That having been said, when you have a Fed that comes out and says, hey, we don't think that the economy is going to be back to where it was in January 2020 until the end of 2022. I mean, my goodness, that's 2.5 years from now. That's a pretty sobering statement from the Fed. And I think, for folks who are more conservative, who've sat in the bond market, trying to take shelter, probably heard those messages and said, holy gosh, the Fed doesn't think we're going to get out of this anytime soon.
So what are you suggesting to your clients that they, as they think about perhaps even allocating some new capital, is it a typical 60-40 allocation, or are you perhaps be a little bit more cautious?
No, so we're on the other side of that. So again, we're trying to encourage folks to embrace the what we have learned through, our history of investing in markets, and that is that bull markets, bear markets tend to end when recessions begin. The recession began in February, and we believe we're in the process of forming a bottom in this recession, and the market is setting up for a new bull market, and that bull market is probably going to behave the way others have coming out of a recession, which is a preference for early cyclicals, things like financials, industrials, materials, transports, energy, and those are the types of areas that are not excessively overvalued today, but where we do think that there's upside surprise that could come. And so, we are encouraging folks to take some risk here and balance those conservative portfolios, many of which on the stock side have been loaded up with the usual names, and you all know what they are, the tech stocks.
Very briefly though, Lisa, if it's not your typical recession, then will the market perform in the typical post-recession way after this?
So I guess my response to that is there's never a typical recession. And so while the economic composition of every single recession is different, and where the excess is and where the stress points are and where the victims are is always different, the market playbook tends to be very, very, very similar. And that's what we're trying to tell clients is, yes, maybe in the last recession, we were worried about financials and housing. In the one before that, we were worried about the tech wreck. Perhaps this one, we're worried about, parts of consumer discretionary and retail that are structurally impaired. But nevertheless, we are going to have an economic recovery, and the market's probably going to react in very similar ways.
Lisa, thanks for joining us this morning. That's Lisa Shallot, CIO of Wealth Management at Morgan Stanley. Of course, client assets there totaling nearly $2.5 trillion. So a lot of money to put to work. If you were putting it to work in the equity market today, you would be down, but not by much. It's been a whippy week. We've had 2 up days, 1 down day so far, and today is Thursday, so we'll see how we end up. Right now, the S&P and the Dow both down 0.2%. The Nasdaq, however, is flat. A little move in bond yields. We have the 10-year back down to 69 basis points right now, and gold, as Lisa was talking about, still above 17.19.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks have paired earlier losses and are now trading little changed. The picture for global markets remains complex for investors. Fears of a second wave of coronavirus illnesses are increasing. Some of America's oldest and best-known consumer brands are under scrutiny. PepsiCo will rebrand its Aunt Jemima breakfast products. Mars said it's reevaluating Uncle Ben's rice. And Conagra said it's reviewing Mrs. Butterworth's syrup. More than 50 developers have tapped the loan market to help weather the pandemic that has battered rentals and sales. Real estate firms have raised $23 billion by drawing down on existing credit lines or getting new financing since March. The sector is among the top 5 borrowers during the pandemic. And Ford is again extending its work-from-home arrangements for salaried workers. For the remainder of this year, white-collar workers have the option to work remotely, in the office, or a combination of both. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The Bloomberg Markets Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Bonnie Quinn.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
Market sell-off glowing global once again.
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
What's the thought on Apple here?
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
There's very, very disturbing dynamics at work.
Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Bonnie Quinn. Subscribe today at BloombergRadio.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or iTunes. You're living in a world built on science.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
So I often struggled at school. Once, when we had a maths test, I looked around the room and everyone was just doing it. And I couldn't, and I began to cry. But my teacher came over and said, it might look like one big problem, but it's just a handful of small ones, and you can deal with that. I hear her voice in my head for every problem I face to this day.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. You could get £26,000 tax-free to train as a teacher. Subject to eligibility, selected subjects only. Search Get Into Teaching.
And action!
I was offered one.
Cut. That's not on the script.
I was offered one. Get in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was offered one.
Come boy, I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
If you can build that flat-pack wardrobe without looking at the instructions, you've still got it. If you can manage 5 keepy uppies on your first go, you've without question still got it. If you can toss a pancake to the ceiling and not let it hit the floor, surely you've still got it. And if you can just about fit into those jeans you bought 5 years ago, you've definitely still got it. Brute, still got it.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
Listen, that's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al, or Derek, or Sanjay, or Sue, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, the interview of the morning. Stephen Roach, senior fellow at Yale University and former chairman of Morgan Stanley Asia, on his column entitled How the Coming Crash in the Dollar will unfold. We'll have that for you in just moments. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Stocks have been fluctuating fall. Investors are weighing the latest employment data and reports about fresh outbreaks of coronavirus. We check the markets every 15 minutes. Right now, the S&P is little change, down 1. The Dow is down less than 0.1%, down 16. And the NASDAQ is up 0.1%, up 12. The 10-year is up 13.30 seconds with a yield of 0.69%. West Texas Intermediate's up over 1% at 38.33 a barrel. COMEX Gold's down 0.7% at 17.24 even per ounce. The dollar yen, 106.77. The euro, $1.12.11. And the British pound, $1.24.10. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
It is 10:32 on Wall Street. Time to check in now with Bloomberg Opinion. We're joined by opinion columnist, but oh, so much more than that. His name is Stephen Roach, and you'll know him from his time as former chairman of Morgan Stanley Asia. Also, of course, he's a senior fellow at Yale University. Stephen, I want to talk to you about your call on the dollar, but first I have to ask you about this explosive book from John Bolton, all of the allegations that he didn't make when he had the chance to give testimony, but is now making in a book. You know the Chinese administration possibly as well as anybody in the administration, probably much, much more so. Do you believe the allegation that President Trump pleaded with Mr. Xi to help him win re-election by buying American agricultural products, which would help President Trump in farm states?
You know, Bonnie, I do not know, the veracity of he said, she said allegations in any of this political intrigue from, the Ukraine to Beijing. You hear an awful lot. And, it's clear that, we have a president who has pushed the envelope in his use of political leverage to achieve not just electoral results, but economic results. And whether or not he did, as former National Security Advisor Bolton indicated, utilize those tactics in addressing the China conflict for political purposes in the U.S. It remains to be seen. I mean, Trump will deny it, and Bolton has got another point of view. And, I have no idea as to whether or not Bolton is right, or as Trump says, he's lying. The president has an inclination to stretch the truth a little bit as well, as we have gathered from his 18,000 plus lies that have been fact checked by the Washington Post since he's been president. But I just don't know.
So, Stephen, let's switch gears to your column here. Every time we have an FX strategist on, my first question is always, give me the bear case for the U.S. dollar. And I rarely get a good answer or any answer at all, but I think you've got one for us. What's your call on the U.S. dollar?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not an FX strategist, Paul, so I don't have to do this for a living because, currency calls are some of the toughest calls to do. But look, I worry about an unsustainable dynamic that is now emerging between domestic saving, or the lack thereof in the U.S., and our chronic current account problem, which requires us to borrow surplus foreign savings from abroad. We entered COVID with a historically low domestic savings rate of only 1.4% of national income in early 2020. The 45-year average is 7%. So we have very inadequate saving, and reflecting these explosive budget deficit trajectory that we're on right now. As the Congress and the administration addresses precipitous decline in economic activity, our saving is going to go into negative territory. It did that once before in the global financial crisis. The average was a negative 1.8%. Over the 2009 to 2011 period. But it's going to go sharply negative, I think, into the minus 5 to 10% area, and that's going to blow our current account deficit to a new record in excess of 6.5% of GDP. The dollar serves the purpose of setting the equilibrium between savings and the current account, and so I'm looking for a 35% decline in the dollar over the next 5 years to address that.
Yeah, it's a stunning call. 35% decline in the value of the dollar. That would change the U.S. economy irreparably, I imagine. Now, you do say it's couched in terms of the comparison between the U.S. and the currencies of a broad basket of America's trading partners. Would that include the yuan? Would China be a trading partner in the future, Stephen?
Yeah, Vani, first of all, 35%, it's a big number. But, if you look at the dollar, as it's moved over the last 45 years, we've had two drops of 33% in the 70s and again in the mid 80s. We had a drop of 28% in the early 2000s. These are against broad trade weighted baskets of all of our trading partners. So this is not outside the realm of the dollar declines we've seen in the past, and it would, the dollar would fall against, I think, the Chinese renminbi, yes, surprisingly against the euro, which is the most unloved major currency in the world, but also against, the Canadian dollar, the Mexican peso, and probably even against gold and cryptocurrencies like the Bitcoin. So, this is a broad-based decline reflecting some serious macroeconomic imbalances that have long been evident in the U.S. that are going from bad to worse as we speak.
Stephen, very briefly, we only have just a couple of seconds, but could China really give the U.S. dollar a run for reserve currency?
Not on a near-term basis. I think China's got a long way to go to liberalize its financial system, to make its currency fully convertible, open up its capital account. And China's got issues of its own. But our reserve position has come down over the last 20 years, and it's likely to go further down with the dollar coming under the pressure that I envision.
Stephen, it is always a pleasure to speak with you. Never enough time, but we thank you for joining us. Stephen Roach is Senior Fellow at Yale University, former Chairman of Morgan Stanley Asia, and Bloomberg opinion columnist. Do check out his latest column, How the Coming Crash in the Dollar Will Unfold, for more details on our conversation just then. Now let's head to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for World National Headlines with Martin DeCaro.
Hello, Vani. It's relief for 650,000 young undocumented immigrants, a setback for President Trump's hardline immigration policies. The Supreme Court stopped the administration from ending DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program put in place by Barack Obama. With Chief Justice John Roberts joining the liberal justices, the court ruled the administration did not give an adequate reason for rescinding the deportation and jobs protections. President Trump is calling his ex-security advisor John Bolton a wacko whose new book is filled with lies. And on Fox News, he responded to the allegations in Bolton's coming memoir that painted a damning portrait of a president ignorant of the world and bent on putting his political fortunes ahead of the country's.
They broke the law. Very simple. As much as it's going to be broken, this is highly classified. That's the highest stage. It's highly classified information.
The president also made a coronavirus prediction that the virus will fade away even without a vaccine. His campaign's going ahead with a rally in Tulsa Saturday. As many as 20,000 people could pack an arena in defiance of public health warnings. Johns Hopkins University data shows 10 states, including Oklahoma, are seeing record high 7-day averages of new coronavirus cases. Meantime, China's top epidemiologist says Beijing's new coronavirus outbreak has already passed.
So will you please say hello?
She was known as the Force's sweetheart. Vera Lynn serenaded British troops during the Second World War. She's dead at 103. We'll meet again, one of her sentimental classics. Global news 24 hours a day on air in a quick take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in 120 countries.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. NJIT faculty mentored Christoph Camacho when he was a student, helping him co-found a startup and patent a device that uses drone technology for reforestation and to collect valuable data for land management.
I founded Paratrees back in 2016, taking what I learned from my research at NJIT and migrating it to a startup. Our technology is to really enhance land management operations. So we work very closely with land management companies. So we have a drone that performs precision reforestation, and we do storm damage assessment, having access to drones that can collect data so it's much faster. And what is more important, we help them drive management decisions. NJIT has been there every step of the way, going full force with my company.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at seic.com/seize change.
In-depth analysis.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan, gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. We're temporarily changing when 60-plus London Oyster photo cards, older persons' freedom passes and English National Concession Scheme passes can be used. From the 15th of June, you will only be able to use these passes from 9 a.m. on weekday mornings. This is to protect those who must travel in the morning peak and allows you to travel at times when you can safely social distance from others. For more information, search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Tesco, we've price-matched Aldi on hundreds of products, like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, tomatoes, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Who says you can't have a laugh while getting serious about America's pastime? On the daily podcast Locked On MLB, comedian and baseball fanatic Paul Francis Sullivan talks about each team, each pennant race, and everything else in the game. From rule changes and controversies to baseball cards and stadium food.
For those of you who are not familiar with me or the old show, I love to obsess over baseball. I'm talking baseball over the Super Bowl. We had a TV showing the division series during my wedding.
Search Locked On MLB on TuneIn to listen today.
As the science and medical world continues to learn more about COVID-19, we're all learning how to best live with it. Because the news is always changing, TuneIn helps you make sure you're getting the latest information on the pandemic with live streams of CNN, MSNBC, BBC, and more. Plus, evidence-driven podcasts like Coronavirus, Fact versus Fiction, and Podcast 19 for the latest stories and reports. Search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks have been fluctuating to lower, extending the declines posted yesterday for the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P as more Americans than expected filed claims for initial unemployment insurance. Let's take a look at the markets right now. The S&P has gone from red to slightly green, up just less than 0.1%, up 2. The Dow is little changed, up 1, and the Nasdaq is up 0.3%, up 27. The 10-year is up 11/32, the yield 0.7%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1.25% at 38.44 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.5% at 17.2720 an ounce. The dollar yen 106.82, the euro $1.1215, the pound $1.2408. Wall Street bond traders may soon be immortalized in the fashion of baseball legends like Honus Wagner, Willie Mays, and Pete Rose if a plan by a former Goldman Sachs Group executive takes up. Baseball cards are coming to finance. The brainchild of Chris White, founder of bond trading and analytics firm BondClick. The digital cards reflect a new statistical approach to measure the effectiveness of individual traders and salespeople on dealer bond desks. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Bonnie Quinn on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, we got another grim jobs number today. 1.5 million jobs lost last week. That's the bad news. The good news is it's less bad than it had been over the prior 10 weeks. So some improvement there. Maybe some bottoming beginning to form here in the U.S. economy as we look to get to the other side. Another indicator came out today, the leading economic indicator from the Conference Board. We'll get to that. Ataman Ozeldrum, he's a director of economic research and global research chair for the Conference Board. He joins us. Ataman, thanks so much for joining us. What did your leading economic index show for June?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me on this morning. So the leading economic index increased by 2.8%, and this follows a 6.1% decline in April. So it follows 3 consecutive declines. It suggests the initial shock to the economy may be behind us. As you said, the bottoming might be forming. But it also suggests the path ahead in the recovery is going to be very uncertain.
Why is there such confidence? Why is the leading economic indicator even positive at the moment? Is it all on fiscal stimulus?
Yeah, well, it shows a partial recovery relative to the past 3 months. And I think a lot of that has to do with the initial reopening of the economy that we've been seeing since May. But when you look at some of the underlying components, that relative improvement is mainly coming from unemployment insurance claims, initial claims data. About 2/3 of the gain in the index this month came from UI claims.
So, Ataman, we are got those claims again this morning. Are you concerned at all that, again, it's a glass half full, glass half empty here? Those claims aren't as bad as they were, obviously, a month or so ago, but they're, kind of 1.5 million is still a big number. How are you kind of looking at the jobless situation?
Exactly. So there is a glass half full, half empty situation. Of course, the improvements are welcome, but we're still in a deep hole in the economy, especially for the labor markets. There's a lot of disruption, a lot of jobs lost. Compared to February, we're down 20 million jobs. And while the improvements in those UI claims and the 2.5 million jobs that we learned about for May in the last report, those are welcome, but it just still shows that there's a long way to go.
Yeah, and continuing claims came down, but not by as much as people were expecting, or I should say economists in the Bloomberg survey were expecting. So there is that. Ottoman, if we don't get more fiscal stimulus, if unemployment insurance isn't extended, if it's not as as hefty as it was, then we need those jobs to come back. But what is the guarantee that 20 million jobs that were lost in the pandemic will come back?
Yeah, well, I think that's what we see in the LEI. It just points to an uncertain recovery path. And, if those stimulus programs are ended at the end of July, there's no guarantee that the initial bottoming out that we're seeing in the LEI is going to continue. I really would like to see consistent and persistent increases month over month in the LEI, and I would like to see those coming from all 10 components of the LEI rather than just, one or two like the UI claims data that we saw this month.
So, Ottoman, we had a bunch of states reopening, not that they shut down very much, but now we're starting to see spikes in some of the infection rates. Does your index, how does it capture maybe the risk associated with that?
Yeah, certainly, as an economic indicator, the LEI is not built to capture, a public health issue, a pandemic like this. And the immediate impact does show up in the labor markets, obviously, because, we have to shut down economic activity if those spikes occur. But then it also shows up in other components like consumers' expectations. What do consumers think about business conditions and their incomes? And there is some weakness there. It'll also show up in, manufacturing activity, like the new orders component. Are companies getting orders, are confident enough to place orders for future production? And those are the areas where we're seeing weakness.
Where we're not seeing so much weakness is stock prices that came in positive, and building permits came in positive as well. How much influence does that element of the leading economic indicators have on the whole index?
Yeah, the stock prices are obviously volatile and reacting to very short-term news. And also because of the uncertainty, there is a lot of volatility there. And so the leading index, treats stock prices as one of the 10 components. So its influence is really diminished over the whole index. It's 1/10. And when it comes to housing permits that you mentioned, the relative strength in construction data is also very welcome because it is a leading sector for the overall economy. And as we, reopen some of the construction projects, that's going to be helpful. Those are, of course, supported by the low interest environment that the Fed has provided.
So, Ottoman, let's just step back. Given all the data that we've received over the last several weeks, what's kind of the economic outlook for the Conference Board at the moment?
So consistent with what we're seeing in the leading indicators, overall, we're leaving the initial shock of the pandemic behind us. But we're looking ahead at a pretty slow recovery period for the rest of the year. And we think it's going to take a while for the economy to recover to sort of pre-pandemic levels.
All right, well, we will certainly keep in touch with you then and figure all of this out together. Thanks so much for joining us today, Ottoman Yildirim. He is from the Conference Board. And just to remind people that the leading index came in a little earlier, positive 2.8%. That's from a prior reading, which was revised down to minus 6.1%. Now, it was better than economists were looking for, but as Ottoman was saying, it was really just a couple of parts of the index that were positive, like building permits, like unemployment insurance. And at the same time, we saw today initial jobless claims coming in above 1.5 million. Again, continuing claims at 20.5 million, which is down from 20.9 million. True, but again, wasn't as good as economists were looking for. They were looking for continuing claims to drop below 20 million. It really, it seems so strange to be using numbers that high,
yes.
Isn't it, Paul?
It really does, and you just hope that it's not a kind of a stalling out here of the improvement that we've been seeing over the last 10 or 11 weeks as it relates to weekly jobless claims. But again, we had that surprise employment report just last week, which was very positive. So we'll see how the momentum continues to build here.
That does it for this hour. We have more on the markets and economics coming up in the 11 hour.
And action.
I was offered one.
Cut. That's not on the script.
I was offered one. Get in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was offered one.
Come, boy. I was offered one. Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
What if the world listened more? Maybe it could become a better place. Because when we really listen, we start to notice things that don't sound quite right. They might not seem obvious at first, but listen closely and they stand out like a sore plum. And the more we listen, the more we learn. Our ears help us find better solutions. And things can change from this to something a little more like this. The new Honda Jazz is a hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another PC World? Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Safely and sustainably. We're temporarily changing when 60-plus London Oyster photo cards, older persons' freedom passes, and English National Concession Scheme passes can be used. From the 15th of June, you will only be able to use these passes from 9 a.m. on weekday mornings. This is to protect those who must travel in the morning peak and allows you to travel at times when you can safely social distance from others. For more information, search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs. Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney.
Will technology lead us out of this crisis?
We don't know how many companies can accept people back on their roster.
The Fed seems to have really flexed its muscles.
There's still a coronavirus risk.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
To wring out that buy the dip mentality, that takes time.
Are we looking at a more damaging break in the labor market? Does the shape of the yield curve matter? We're looking at late 2021, early 2022, where it really feels quote-unquote normal.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, a historic day in this country's immigration policy. The Supreme Court today ruled stopping President Trump from canceling President Obama's DACA program. We'll dig into the details of that ruling coming up. Plus, Barry Ritholtz of Ritholtz Wealth Manager will get his thoughts on the markets and investing. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
We've spent most of the session so far fluctuating, Paul. Investors are looking at the latest employment data. We'll have some of that in a moment. And reports about fresh outbreaks of the coronavirus in China and the USA. Treasuries are extending their advance. Let's take a look at the numbers as we do about every 15 minutes. The S&P is now up 0.2%, up 5. The Dow is a little changed, up 17. And the Nasdaq's up 0.4%, up 40. The 10-year is up 11.30 seconds. The yield 0.7%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 1.3% at 38.46 a barrel. COMEX gold's down 0.4% at 17.2820 an ounce. The dollar yen 106.77. The euro's at $1.1220 and the British pound $1.2418. Back to employment. Applications for unemployment benefits in the U.S. fell less than forecast last week, showing only gradual improvement from the worst of the pandemic-related layoffs, even as states reopen more of their economies. Initial jobless claims for regular state programs totaled 1.5 million in the week ended June 13th, down slightly from an upwardly revised 1.57 million in the prior period. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues now with Paul and Vonnie.
Thanks, Greg Jarrett. It is time now to bring back in Dave Wilson, our stocks editor and stocks columnist here at Bloomberg. And typically at this time, we take a look at how small caps are performing. So the Russell 2000, Dave, it's had a bit of a whippy week, just like the rest of the major indices. Looks to be a bit mixed today as well.
Yeah, but at least you're seeing bigger gains for smaller companies. You can say that much. The Russell 2000 up 0.8%. Well, the S&P 500 is only higher by 0.1%. Biggest gain in the Russell belongs to BBX Capital, whose ticker, as you might expect, is BBX. The real estate company has climbed 23%. BBX said it would separate a 93% stake in the timeshare seller Blue Green Vacations from its other operations. Enphase Energy, ticker ENPH, has risen more than 18%. Data compiled by Bloomberg shows 5 analysts reaffirmed buy ratings on the solar equipment maker after a critical report yesterday by short seller Prescience Point. And ABM Industries, ticker ABM, has climbed 15.5%. Fiscal second quarter earnings at the building services company were well above analyst average estimate in a Bloomberg survey. One of the Russell's sharpest drops belongs to Team Incorporated, the ticker TISI. The industrial maintenance company has fallen 15% after posting a wider first quarter loss than analysts expected. And Sonos, ticker SONO, has lost 9%. A person familiar with the matter said the audio equipment maker is selling 13.9 million shares on behalf of an investor. And our data shows only the private equity firm KKR has that much stock.
Bloomberg Stocks Editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Well, so we've been reporting this morning, a historic day from the Supreme Court on the immigration issue. A divided U.S. Supreme Court stopped President Donald Trump from ending the Obama-era program that shields 670,000 young undocumented immigrants from deportation and lets them seek jobs. To dig down deep into this, we're very fortunate to have our good friend June Garasso join us. June is a legal analyst and host of Bloomberg Law. You can hear that weekdays at 10 p.m. Wall Street time. June, thanks so much for joining us here. Give us your quick thoughts on this 5-4 decision out of the Supreme Court.
Well, this is the second time this week that the court has ruled against the Trump administration, and this is a case where Chief Justice John Roberts sided with the 4 liberals in the court. So it's a 5-4 decision. And he basically said that no one's arguing that the Trump administration could terminate the DACA program. Everyone agrees it can, but they went about it in the wrong way. They didn't provide a reasoned explanation for why they were doing this. The way they acted was arbitrary and capricious. This is a decision that we have been waiting for. It's the decision that we've been waiting for the longest. It was argued early in the term. So you see, it took a long time because there are so many different opinions. There's not only the dissent and the majority opinion, there are concurrences in part, dissents in part. It's really complicated.
So the line that I took from it, June, was the appropriate recourse is therefore to remand to DHS so that it may consider the problem anew. Does this mean that the Department of Homeland Security will actually consider it, make better arguments, and the Supreme Court won't have any objection at that point?
Well, they could do that. This is what the chief said. You can take it back again and you can redo it. But the thing is, that would take a long time because they'd have to come up with some reasoned explanation. They'd have to follow the rules. So it's unlikely they could do that within the end of the Trump term. If he's elected to a second term, they can try to do that and come up with better explanations that will satisfy the court that they've really thought this through. But this sort of reminds you of the census case where the Supreme Court's kicking it down the road saying, okay, you guys take it back now. We're done with this and we'll see what you do next.
So, June, for legal analysts like yourself and Supreme Court watchers, how surprising, if at all, is it that how Justice Roberts voted here?
Well, I thought it was surprising. This was a case that we didn't really have an inkling of how it was going to go. In other words, the case earlier this week on LGBT rights, that was a case where during the oral argument, you could sort of tell that Justice Gorsuch might be leaning in the direction of gay rights. However, with this case, it was very hard to tell what was going on. So I was very surprised. I think a lot of people were very surprised. And also, it's always surprising when you see that Chief Justice John Roberts is now the swing vote that Anthony Kennedy was. And in the two cases this week, he sided with the three liberals.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole range of things to be surprised at, not least that this was a 5-4 decision as well, June. Remind us exactly how many people and who we're talking about. These are the dreamers, almost 700,000 kids that were born here that would have had to leave if this wasn't upheld.
Right, and President Barack Obama started this program that allows them to continue to work and find a way towards citizenship. President Trump said that it was not within his legal authority, President Obama's legal authority, to have this program, so he ended it. So right now, the Dreamers have been in this sort of no man's land for so many months, and right now they can go on with the program. They can re-up for more of the program. They can feel comfortable that they're not going to be deported, and that's the big thing. There was this question of whether, if the Supreme Court had said that this DACA decision was absolutely right and that Trump could go ahead, then the question was, would these 670, 700,000 young immigrants be deported? And some of them, remember, don't even speak another language. They've been here so long. They are American citizens. Most of them are well employed. So it would be a torturous debate, and it would really be a controversial thing that would, again, cause, disruptions in the country.
And I guess if it had gone the other way, then the potential was there for literally 700,000, all but American in name kids to be deported. ASAP. Justices Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh all dissented.
Yes, now, Justice Thomas said that this was an effort to avoid a politically controversial but legally correct decision. So he said this would bind future administrations to what prior presidents do in executive orders. So think about all the executive orders that President Trump has written and issued. Should the next president be bound by those? But of course, that's the legal issue. But Chief Justice Roberts said that that's not really the case, because it's just a question of how they did it. And this happens all the time to the Trump administration in the courts. On environmental issues, they don't follow the rules when they do these things.
June, we have to leave you go, but thank you, June Grasso, legal analyst and host of Bloomberg Law, weekdays at 10 a.m.
Right now, let's head out to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Martin Nakaro. Martin.
Actually, it's with Nancy Lyons. Thanks, Paul. As you've been hearing here on Bloomberg, the Supreme Court is rejecting the Trump administration's bid to end legal protections for young immigrants. The program to protect the so-called Dreamers was established by the Obama administration. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion and says the justifications given by the Trump administration for ending DACA were inadequate. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton is detailing his time at the White House, and it is not a flattering picture for the president. Bolton tells ABC News he left the job deeply disturbed.
I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. There really isn't any guiding principle that I was able to discern other than what's good for Donald Trump's reelection.
President Trump railed on Bolton in an interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News.
They broke the law. Very simple. I mean, as much as it's going to be broken, this is highly classified. That's the highest stage. It's highly classified information, and he did not have approval. That's come out now very loud and very strong.
Bolton's book, titled The Room Where It Happened, the Justice Department is seeking an emergency restraining order to block the book's publication set for Tuesday. Well, it's not looking good for NFL or college football this year. Dr. Anthony Fauci on the White House Coronavirus Task Force tells CNN unless players are essentially in a bubble, insulated from the community and tested nearly every day, it would be very hard to see how football is able to be played. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
You may not be getting on planes yet.
At what point do we start to see this elusive V-shaped recovery?
But for detailed, up-to-the-minute news of Asia, you don't have to.
Do you think that the tension has the possibility to destabilize Asian assets?
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Do you expect some of these companies that come and list here to then delist in New York?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Market upheavals.
The narrative is driven by uncertainty about the virus.
Political reversals.
It's not clear that some of the Republicans up on the Hill are agreed with the Republican White House.
Economic shifts.
The macro clearly being driven by the coronavirus outbreak.
Everything seems to be in motion.
Will it also mean a global recession in your view now?
But here, you're on solid ground.
Looking forward to guiding you through all of this.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath? Or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway? Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage? Yeah, that moment feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan, gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs,
fruit trees,
and dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Thanks to National Lottery players, South Denbighshire Community Partnership are now delivering hot meals to elderly people in the community like Bob and Sarah.
Thank you.
And £600 million of National Lottery funding is on its way to thousands more local projects across the UK during these exceptional times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen.
At Tesco, we've price-matched Aldi on hundreds of products, like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, tomatoes, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Braden and Jared Carrabis cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
Hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash. Stocks have shrugged off some earlier news and have edged into the green at this hour. Carnival is one example. The cruise line had been down pre-market and is still down, but only slightly so. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is up 0.2%, up 5. The Dow is little changed, up 8, and the NASDAQ is up 0.5%, up 45. The 10-year is up 11/32 with a yield of 0.7%. West Texas Intermediate's up 1.3% at 38.46 a barrel, while COMEX Gold is down 0.3% at 17.3040 an ounce. The dollar yen is at 106.72. The euro $1.1231, and the British pound $1.2435. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett. You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Vonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
And Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by Witham, a forward-thinking advisory and accounting firm helping clients to be in a position of strength in a new reality of business. Learn about their innovative solutions by visiting witham.com. Now, I want to bring in our next guest for a fascinating discussion on a certain book that has come to the attention of publishers all over the world. It's coming out. Apparently, pre-orders are through the roof. And there's also a movement asking people not to buy the book. I'm, of course, talking about the book that John Bolton has written about his time in the administration, 17 months as National Security Advisor. Let's bring in somebody who can talk to this for us. Bloomberg New Economy Editorial Director Andy Brown. Andy, thanks for joining.
Good to be with you.
How much heft does John Bolton have as a critic of President Trump? I mean, he's always been a man of a little bit of bluster from time to time, partial to some dramatic moments, you could say. Will it have an impact on concrete things like polling, like voters?
I think this is why the book is so sensational and why people are taking these allegations so seriously, that, you know, Bolton has enormous credibility as a hawk. He is an uber hawk on China, on North Korea, on Iran, you know, and he has a record of being in successive Republican administrations. I mean, this is not some liberal tossing accusations at Trump. This is somebody who was by his side as his national security director for 17 months and who was privy to all of the conversations, or many of the conversations that he had with heads of state all over the world, including China's Xi Jinping.
Let's go there, Andy. You know, there's interesting excerpts I've read about President Trump
effectively begging for China to buy farm products, U.S. farm products, to improve President Trump's chances with those farm states in the election. What are some of your takeaways on the aspects of the book that have been reported as it relates to China?
It's absolutely devastating. I mean, if what Bolton is saying is true, it is absolutely devastating for Donald Trump. I mean, a major plank in his re-election campaign was supposed to be tough on China, in contrast to Joe Biden, who's supposed to be feckless and weak. And in fact, the account of John Bolton shows a U.S. president who is a pushover on almost every issue in the U.S.-China relationship that matters, whether that's national security, whether that's trade, whether that's human rights, whether that's Hong Kong. He comes across as you say, as an absolute supplicant, begging Xi Jinping to buy U.S. agricultural products so that he could win the next election.
If John Bolton felt so strongly about this, though, and felt that these revelations were so explosive as to really dent the president's credibility, why didn't he testify in the impeachment proceedings?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a good point, and clearly that's where he's weak, and that's why the Democrats are hopping mad. So, I mean, his accusation against the Democrats is that they focus their impeachment too narrowly on Ukraine, and if only they had known about the breadth of this, effort to basically sell American interests in return for private political favor, that this might have got the president impeached. So, I mean, if he had all this, why didn't he dish earlier during the impeachment process, and instead of waiting for his lucrative book contract, $2 million with Simon & Schuster? So it does to an extent undermine his central accusations.
So, Andy, as it relates to China here, what do you think the Chinese are rooting for in the November presidential election? Do they want 4 more years of President Donald Trump?
I think they'd be very happy to have another 4 years of Donald Trump. I mean, they had pegged him right from the start as a leader who would be susceptible to inducements, to flattery. He was a businessman. He was transactional. And according to Bolton's account, that is precisely the way things have turned out. And look, this is not just my opinion. We have some very good reporting out of our Beijing bureau. Pete Martin wrote a story. He'd interviewed a whole bunch of senior, current, and retired Chinese government officials. They said, we want Trump. And the reason they cited is that Trump undermines U.S. alliances. And that is the one thing that the Chinese fear. That is their biggest threat. It is the U.S. alliance structure. And of course, if it is true what Bolton says, this sort of transactional nature, putting everything on the table, including Huawei, including ZTE, including the Uyghurs, just tossing it all into the pot, subsuming everything to getting a trade deal and trading relations with China. This is deeply corrosive of the trust that underpins U.S. alliances all around the world, including in Asia.
Maybe I'll be a little cynical, but does it make it more likely that we'll actually get a trade deal with China now, because both sides will be sort of falling over themselves to prove that there was no backroom dealings, and therefore, the two countries can get on well in public again?
It's really hard to read. I mean, we've just had this meeting in Hawaii between Secretary of State Pompeo and Yang Jiechi, China's top diplomat. Trade would have been on the table. We don't really know what the outcome of those talks was, although it doesn't appear to have achieved anything that looks like a breakthrough. At least nothing that either side have announced. It's also notable, by the way, that Robert Lighthizer, the chief U.S. trade negotiator, has denied some of the more explosive claims that John Bolton made in his book.
Yeah, and those China claims were just the beginning of it. And our thanks to you, Andy Brown, editorial director for Bloomberg New Economy, for joining us there. Bolton saying Trump not fit for office and lacks the competence to serve as president, in part because he's solely focused on his political fortunes. I don't know many presidents for whom that's not a priority either, though. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. The S&P 500 trading little changed. Investors weighing the latest reports about fresh outbreaks of the coronavirus in China and America. The Nasdaq Composite increasing for a fifth day as investors continue to seek comfort in technology-related stocks. Applications for unemployment benefits showed only gradual improvement last week. Initial jobless claims total 1.51 million. The jobless claims data remain a glaring blemish that shows volatility in the labor market. Twitter is allowing some users to record and post their tweets at short audio clips of up to 140 seconds in length. It will roll out these so-called voice tweets to more users in the coming weeks. And a new report said the coronavirus pandemic could wipe out more global wealth than the financial crisis a decade ago. According to Boston Consulting Group, as much as $16 trillion of wealth could disappear. Plus, growth could be slowed over the next 5 years. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
Economics.
All this doom and gloom was out there.
Finance.
Do you see this as a technical correction?
Investment.
What are you looking at to give you some sort of compass through this period?
The Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast.
Lots and lots of talk about what the Fed should and shouldn't do.
Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrell, Lisa Abramowitz, and the names that shape the world's markets.
We speak with Professor Schiller of Yale University.
Bloomberg Surveillance. Listen today at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
At Honda, we've never looked to other car companies for inspiration. No, it's not a matter of an inflated ego. We just prefer listening to what people really need. For example, the new Honda Jazz Hybrid doesn't have the expected 6 airbags. It has 10, including one that prevents the driver and passenger from colliding with each other. And because we also listen to our conscience, all our safety features come as standard. No charge. Honda, the power of dreams.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
I was offered one.
I was offered one. Were you?
Yeah, I was offered one too.
1 2 1 2. I was offered one.
I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
When you're buying tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen. You can do your bit by working from home if you can. Avoid public transport and walk or cycle to work or school wherever possible. We're increasing the number of buses, trains and tubes we run, but they may still be busy during peak hours. If you must use public transport, avoid early mornings between 5:45 and 8:15 and evenings between 4 and 5:30. This will help those who must travel at this time to do so safely. Search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Tesco, we've price matched Aldi on hundreds of products like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, tomatoes, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to be speaking with Barry Ritholtz Wealth Management, of course, Bloomberg opinion on these whippy markets and whether, in fact, they are insane or not, as John Authers wrote on the Bloomberg earlier on today. First, let's get some business news headlines now from Greg Jarrett.
Stocks have been fluctuating, Vonnie. Investors are weighing the latest employment data and reports about fresh outbreaks of COVID-19 in China and here in the United States. Treasuries are extending their advance. We take a look at the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is up 0.1% up 2. The Dow is little change down 12, and the Nasdaq is up 0.3% up 30. The 10-year is up 12.30 seconds. The yield 0.69%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up nearly 2% now at 38.72 a barrel. COMEX gold's down 0.3% at 17.30.40 an ounce. The dollar yen 106.70. The euro is at $1.1227, and the British pound $1.2434. As Congress discusses a new economic relief package, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is now pushing for $120 billion in aid for restaurants that aims to prevent further closures and job losses due to the coronavirus outbreak. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Bonnie Quinn on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, it's been my personal contention that the hedge fund business has really been played out really since the mid-2000s when you think about the returns that have been generated, certainly on a cost-adjusted or after-a-fee basis. That's my personal opinion. I know there's some holes there and some gaps and some exceptions, but to get a sense of kind of where the hedge fund biz is right now, we welcome Barry Ritholtz, Bloomberg opinion columnist and host of Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio, founder, chairman, and chief investment officer also of Ritholtz Wealth Management. Barry, you're out with the latest column here. Hedge funds in Darwinian struggle for survival. What do you mean there?
So I had a really fascinating conversation with Luke Ellis. He is the CEO of Man Group. That is the largest publicly traded, listed hedge fund in the world. They have well over $100 billion in assets. And they've been navigating this fairly successfully. And in our conversation, I had to ask, why are you succeeding and a small handful of funds doing so well when most of the 11,000 hedge funds out there are struggling? And he made quite the fascinating point. The cost of capital, the cost of technology and big data has gotten to a level where it's become a winner-take-all situation.
True, Barry, but isn't it always the case that for hedge funds it's been a Darwinian world? I mean, if you talk to Chris Rockos or Alan Howard or people like that, they'll say, no, this, honestly, if you have the right strategy, it's all in the hedge fund world. And I don't think that's changed. So isn't it just that some are better than others and some have the right strategy for the right time?
Yes and no. You know, I recall a quote from Jim Chanos of Kinnikos Associates. They've been around over 30 years, and they are a long-short hedge fund, which is even more challenging because the natural bias of the market is to the upside. And Chanos said when he first was getting started 30-plus years ago, there were a couple of hundred hedge funds, and they all created alpha. Now there's 11 or 12,000 hedge funds, and there's a couple of hundred of them that create alpha. So what's changed isn't the Darwinian competition in his view. It's that there's lots of new players who are very much attracted to the high fee schedule and the outstanding compensation package for people who are on the limited partner side, or on the general partner side for the hedge fund, but may or may not be able to generate the sort of returns that justify those fees. And when we look at Renaissance or D.E. Shaw, or go down the list of the funds that have consistently been at the top of the performance charts, Oaktree or Bridgewater, I mean, the list is hundreds of names long. It's not tens of thousands of names long. And that's why the rush into alternative investments has been so disappointing for places like endowments and family offices and private investors.
So, Barry, give us a sense. I guess I'm kind of shocked that the positive funds flows that we still see into hedge funds, given we have so much data and so many years of data, that on an after fee basis, by and large, it's not a good asset class. What's the status today of kind of asset flows, fund flows for hedge funds?
So you began, and the person, by the way, who is the wizard of that data is Alana Weinstein, who runs a consulting and headhunting firm for hedge fund traders and fund managers, and she has similarly made the observation that it is very much a winner-take-all, with a handful of companies, a handful of hedge funds that have the wherewithal, the monetary means, the talent, and the approach, and the critical mass to do well. We've been seeing a lot of outflows over the past couple of years in hedge funds. There's also a lot of churn because of the high watermark, and I don't want to digress too long on that, but for some funds, it's easier to dissolve and reform than deal with a bad quarter they might have had. So you see a lot of activity. But generally, what the industry has been looking like, a handful of new firms come along and do well. The rest of the firms stick around a year or two before they're either absorbed or dissolved. The flows are mostly going to the bigger, more established funds, the inflows, and the outflows seem to be leaving people who just can't justify their fees. That seems to be what's been happening for a good couple of years now.
And I suppose other asset classes might be easier to access for certain players that wouldn't have been able to before, like private equity, for example, as well. Barry, just a thought on the broad market. John Auth is writing today, it's getting harder to avoid the insanity trade. What do you make of this market?
It's funny because when markets are discounting forward probabilities and lead the economy, everybody is like, the market really seemed to have seen this coming. And we seem to be in a period where either the market is insane or it's seeing more than what we're seeing. So whether that is a return to normalcy in the economy, or at least a big improvement, or some form of a treatment and vaccine, very often when we look at what's happening with the market, it's confounding. And then days, weeks, months later, it's as often as not, I find myself saying, I thought the market was kind of crazy, but it turned out to have gotten it right. It's not always right. Just go back to February 15th. What was the market thinking in February 15th? Lots of indications that perhaps this pandemic was going to be significant, and now we're seeing the same thing to the opposite side.
Barry, got to leave it there, but thank you. Always a pleasure. Barry Ritholtz, Bloomberg Opinion, host of Masters in Business, and of course founder of Ritholtz Wealth Management. Now let's get to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. to Nancy Lyons.
Thanks, Lonnie. A divided U.S. Supreme Court has stopped President Donald Trump from ending the Obama-era program that shielded 670,000 young undocumented immigrants from deportation and also lets them seek jobs. The justices said the Trump administration did not give an adequate justification for rescinding what's known as the DACA program. The reviews are coming in on John Bolton's book that portrays President Trump as obsessed with his re-election and lacking the competence to serve as president. President Trump calls it a compilation of lies and made-up stories, all intended to make him look bad. Trump spoke with Sean Hannity on Fox News.
He broke the law. He was a washed-up guy. I gave him a chance.
Bolton spoke with ABC's Martha Raddatz about the dynamic between President Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin.
I think Putin thinks he can play him like a fiddle. I think Putin is smart, tough. I think he sees that he's not faced with a serious adversary here. I don't think he's worried about Donald Trump.
The White House is suing to prevent Bolton's book from coming out on Tuesday. President Trump will be sitting down with some of the nation's governors this afternoon to discuss reopening small businesses. Trump is pushing states to get back in business despite a rise in coronavirus cases and hospitalizations in 15 states. Here's something football fans don't want to hear. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is on the White House coronavirus task force, says the NFL and college football seasons may have to be canceled this year, especially if there's a second wave of the virus. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
What's the true value of your custodial relationship? Ben Harrison of BNY Mellon's Pershing explains.
As sophisticated investors demand more from their advisors, advisory firms, in turn, need to rely on their custodian to help them grow their complex businesses. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, supporting the rapid growth of RIAs is our number one priority. We understand what it means to deliver true value to our clients who are looking for a custodian that is aligned with their best interest and delivers high-value solutions, all in an open architecture environment with flexibility, choice, and transparency. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength, resiliency, and high-touch service that BNY Mellon Pershing provides. When you work with Pershing, we put your business first. Can your custodian say that?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Pershing Advisor Solutions, LLC, member FINRA SIPC.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
If you can build that flat-pack wardrobe without looking at the instructions, you've still got it. If you can manage 5 keepy uppies on your first go, you've without question still got it. If you can toss a pancake to the ceiling and not let it hit the floor, surely you've still got it. And if you can just about fit into those jeans you bought 5 years ago, you've definitely still got it. Brute, still got it.
And action!
I was offered one.
Cut. That's not on the script.
I was offered one. Get in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was offered one.
Come, boy. I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
What if the world listened more? Maybe it could become a better place. Because when we really listen, we start to notice things that don't sound quite right. They might not seem obvious at first, but listen closely and they stand out like a sore plum. And the more we listen, the more we learn. Our ears help us find better solutions. And things can change from this to something a little more like this. The new Honda Jazz is a hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
When you're buying tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen. You can do your bit by working from home if you can. Avoid public transport and walk or cycle to work or school wherever possible. We're increasing the number of buses, trains and tubes we run, but they may still be busy during peak hours. If you must use public transport, avoid early mornings between 5:45 and 8:15 and evenings between 4 and 5:30. This will help those who must travel at this time to do so safely. Search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Airbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs. Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P's been swinging between gains and losses after opening lower in the wake of that report that weekly U.S. jobless claims stayed above 1 million. The NASDAQ composite increased for a 5th day as investors continue to seek comfort in tech-related stocks. Let's take a look at the numbers now. The S&P is little changed, down about 2. The Dow is down 0.25%, down 61. And the NASDAQ's up 0.25%, up 22. The 10-year is up 12/30 seconds. The yield is just about 0.7. The West Texas Intermediate crude's up 2.1% at 38.77 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 0.3% at 17.2990 an ounce. The dollar yen 106.79, the euro $1.12.17, and the British pound $1.24.25. Goldman Sachs head of U.S. government bond trading Andrew DeMaria is set to join billionaire Steve Cohen's Point72 Asset Management. DeMaria will be a portfolio manager on the hedge fund's macro trading team. Now that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Vonnie Quinn on Bloomberg Radio.
This is going to be a really interesting segment. We want to talk about private equity, and we also want to talk about Vanguard. And it's rare or unusual to hear those two words in the same sentence. Vanguard, yes, the $6.2 trillion firm-wide dollar asset manager, best known for its index products. Earlier this year, got into the private equity business. Joining us right now is Fran Canary, Principal and Global Head of Private Investment at Vanguard. Fran, thanks so much for joining us. The last time you were on, we had a question that we didn't get to, and I know you want to discuss it. And that's basically the question I think a lot of people have is that, is Vanguard looking to create an index private equity market?
Yes, thank you, Paul, and thank you for having me back. And even to your introduction question, so Vanguard is best known for indexing, but a lot of people may not remember the history. Vanguard started as an actively managed firm. Indexing came second. I would say that number one. Number two, we are one of the largest active managers on the public side in the world. So over 1 trillion of the 6 that you mentioned is actively managed. And so Vanguard has always believed in active management. To your specific question of private equity, we are not looking to create an index. When we look at the dispersion of returns, what we mean by that is the average PE fund, like the average public fund, pretty pedestrian, not much that, you would want to lock your money up for. That said, if you believe that you can find top quartile managers, there's tremendous skew to the right side. So if you can get above, let's say, in the top quintile, top 20%, top 25%, the returns are very, very large to the investor. And that is our approach of entering the private equity market.
So will you be as active in this market? Will you be allowed to be, if you like, Fran?
Yeah, so just like on the public side, we're going to be as active as we need to be. As you know, we've partnered with HarborVest. HarborVest is one of the leading private equity managers in the world. They've been doing this for more than 35 years. We all know that historical performance may or may not be a good guide to future performance, but they have one of the, an unbelievable investment track record where they've outperformed the public market significantly. And so we believe that their access, their ability, just like the active managers we have on the public side, that will lead to higher outcomes for our investors.
So, Fred, are there any types, aside from performance, are there types of managers that you plan to invest with? Is it perhaps some focused on industry or domestic versus international? Do you have a strategy for the type of PE managers you want to work with?
Yeah, so our partnership now is with HarborVest, and maybe a little bit of detail inside of what HarborVest is. So it will be a broadly diversified portfolio. So it does not necessarily have to be concentrated. And so it will be broadly diversified. It'll end up being, let's say, 30 to 40 world-class general partners that have created some of the best performance out there. And it'll be also diversified by geography. And it'll also be diversified by stage. And what we mean by stage is buyout, venture capital, growth equity. So it will be a diversified portfolio. It's not going to be a thematic or specialized, all VC or all technology. It will be a broadly diversified but active private equity offering.
Is there too much money in private equity, though? I mean, it feels like for a long time there's been a discussion about how much dry powder is out there, and yet you're saying that pensions, endowments, foundations, and so on, you're offering them even more of the possibility of getting into private equity. Is it a little dangerous?
Again, I wouldn't call it dangerous. I think what happens is investors are quite smart. They're quite sophisticated. Private equity is probably the space where you have the largest and most sophisticated investors. And the reason why the money is going there is because the returns, to be honest, have been very, very high in the top half. And so the managers that are getting the cash flow and the interest in the asset class is mostly related to their performance. And so we feel that private equity is a growing space. You can look at how large private equity is growing. So I think everyone looks at the demand side, how much demand is coming. But the supply side is growing quite quickly as well. And so you are seeing supply side companies staying private longer. Companies may not even need public markets and are getting funding from the private side. And so we don't see really any dilution in returns in the last 3 years that we would have seen, let's say, 12 years ago, at least when we look at HarborVest returns. So we're quite encouraged that this will add, number one, diversification to an all-public portfolio, and also have the opportunity for higher performance.
So, Fran, I know you announced this partnership with HarborVest in, I guess, February of this year. Ultimately, how much capital do you think you will allocate to this asset class?
Any time you launch something that is new, the first, let's say, 1, 2, 3 years, it could end up being on the smaller end. But we actually think that we have an opportunity here. The asset class of private equity has largely been limited to, let's say, the top 1% pools, the largest endowments, foundations, sovereign wealth funds. Vanguard specializes, as you may know, we have 30 million investors. We do have endowments, foundations, and high net worth families. And so we believe that, eventually we'll be able to show our investors the benefits of private equity, and it'll, grow into a sizable asset. We've never been about growth, so we're not putting this out there to try to have any kind of cash flow targets. We are founded, and our only purpose is to improve client outcomes, and we think that this will do that.
All right, Fran, thank you for coming back on and giving us a little more of a picture into what you were doing there at Vanguard. That is Fran Canary, Principal and Global Head of Private Investment at Vanguard, the $6.2 trillion asset manager based in Malvern, Pennsylvania. And a little more than an asset manager, Paul. Vanguard has a huge influence, really, in the marketplace as well.
They do. Obviously, with their index fund, just the gross tonnage of assets under management, but also on their active side as well, as Fran was mentioning, over a trillion of actively managed funds as well. So interesting to see them going there. I think your question was a great one about too much cash, chasing too few deals, and maybe pushing valuations up and returns down. Yeah, you do have to wonder, but there's no question there's a chase on there for assets with the Fed really underwriting all asset classes. Do stay tuned. Markets are mixed right now. This is Bloomberg.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local list.
I was offered one.
I was offered one. Were you?
Yeah, I was offered one too.
1 2 1 2. I was offered one.
I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen. You can do your bit by working from home if you can. Avoid public transport and walk or cycle to work or school wherever possible. We're increasing the number of buses, trains and tubes we run, but they may still be busy during peak hours. If you must use public transport, avoid early mornings between 5:45 and 8:15 and evenings between 4 and 5:30. This will help those who must travel at this time to do so safely. Search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Enjoy peace of mind with Ford. Relax and think about 3 months deferred payment on a new vehicle. Visualize an additional 3 months cash back. Breathe deeply and let 0% APR representative on selected vehicles wash over you. That's peace of mind from Ford. Current promotion ends 30th of June. Search Ford Peace of Mind for details.
Only available with Ford credit on selected finance plans. Exclusions and deposit restrictions may apply.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From New York to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, welcome to Balance of Power, where the world of politics meets the world of business. I'm David Weston. Well, the markets today, after being way up and way down, don't seem to be either. They seem to be wandering around, and Scarlett Fu is here to explain maybe that's not a bad thing, Scarlett.
Maybe it's not a bad thing after all the volatility we had seen in previous days. Yeah, it's a mixed day in U.S. equities and actually across asset classes as well. So let's start on a security that's actually moving. Let's talk about WTI. Oil prices are now up by almost 2%, approaching $40 a barrel in New York. Energy stocks are, as a result, the best performers in the S&P 500. Iraq will be cutting production, compensating for its past non-compliance with OPEC Plus's agreement to reduce output. So that's giving oil prices a bit of a lift here. You can see gold is taking a step back. The dollar gain versus almost all the G10 currencies except the yen, and we are looking at lower yields in the 10-year for a second day. David, the big backdrop here is it is the tug of war between the increase in COVID-19 cases and signs that the economy is on the mend. You had the Philly Fed manufacturing report that showed us back in positive territory, so that means manufacturing is no longer contracting, and it confirms the positive reading we got in last week's Empire Manufacturing. Leading indicators also higher than expected. On the other hand, jobless claims still coming in above 1 million. For the most part, we're kind of in a wait-and-see mode right now because in the past 2 weeks, we really saw the S&P 500 range-bound near its peak, and then last Thursday happened. It was a sharp drop. It was a long overdue pullback by lots of people's explanation, and we briefly dipped below 3,000 in the S&P 500. Then a recovery once again as the Federal Reserve gave more details on its plans to buy bonds, corporate bonds, not just through ETFs, but individually through its own index. So that resulted in a 77-point range over the last 3 days, and we have seen buy the dip come back again as a mantra for the markets. One thing I should note, volume has been lighter than average, 30% below the 30-day average. Quadruple witching is tomorrow, so perhaps that plays into it, and maybe we'll see volume pick up once again after that. But we are after Memorial Day, so it might just be the summer doldrums as well. David?
Yeah, there is that, the summer doldrums. I look forward to this. Thank you so much to Scarlett Fu for that report on the markets. Well, former National Security Advisor John Bolton is causing quite a stir with a new book that he's trying to bring out, at least, talking about his dealings with President Trump in the White House. To talk about the political consequences of that, we welcome now our political contributor. He's Rick Davis of Stone Court Capital. He, of course, among other things, managed the late John McCain's campaign for president. So, Rick, there's been a fair amount of reporting already. We haven't seen the book, a fair amount of reporting what's in it. From what you've seen so far, what's the most damaging thing for the president that you've seen?
Well, I think it runs along two courses. One, the stories that John Bolton has been telling in the book that we've seen in some of the excerpts in news reporting. As you say, the book hasn't been distributed yet to a larger audience, and with all these lawsuits that the administration is trying to tie it up, maybe we will, and maybe we won't see it sometime soon. But along two courses. One is information we didn't otherwise have that has made its way into the public domain. Of course, we knew the Ukraine story. That got vetted out pretty well during the impeachment hearings. But we didn't hear about Donald Trump's conversations with Xi Jinping about the Uyghurs and the encampments that the Chinese have built, and his basic acquiescence to that. And that's a news item that I think will generate a lot of interest. And I would say, too, that falls along an interesting campaign theme where the Trump administration, Trump campaign, has already been trying to frame a message around Joe Biden's campaign that Joe Biden is weak on China. And so this was a double whammy. It is news that we otherwise didn't have, so that it'll get a lot of attention, and it undermines Trump's assertion that he is tougher on China than Joe Biden would be.
So Rick, let me ask you, it's certainly grist for the mill for those in the media. Is there anyone out there, any voter, who's likely to switch their vote based on the things we're hearing so far about this? Is this all a big surprise to people? Does this really bother President Trump's base?
I don't think it'll bother his base, David, but there are people who are going to be scratching their head in the middle of this, voters who would swing one way or another, and they would be the people who are beneficiaries of and supportive of Donald Trump's economic growth over the last 3 years. Obviously, that's been set back by the pandemic, but there are a group of voters who are up for grabs who want sort of a liberal economic approach like Donald Trump has had, and would worry that the Democrat administration under Joe Biden would usher in more regulation, more constraints, higher taxes. And so they could be found in the middle of this debate, wondering whether or not Trump would be effective as a manager of the nation and our economy if he's been dogged by these kinds of scandals that are represented in the book.
So the John Bolton book isn't the only thing President Trump has to deal with today. We also have a Supreme Court ruling on the DACA, that program that President Obama had to not deport people who'd come here as children. He lost that. That's something he'd campaigned on. Is this going to hurt him politically or help him? I saw he came out and tweeted about blowing shotgun blasts to people's faces and things, saying you got to vote for me or we're going to lose our Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, it's definitely a distraction to his message. You know, as you point out, he spent the better part of his last campaign for president in 2016 talking about the border, building a fence, and stopping illegal immigration. And he threw the DACA program under the bus in the first year of his administration, going after it, saying, you know, these were done inappropriately, and it's been tied up in court really ever since then. So you'll notice lately there's been not a lot of talk about immigration. He's obviously moved off of that as a topic to his reelection campaign, and the Supreme Court decision kind of reminds the American public and the media that this debate hasn't ended, that there is still a lively immigration issue that's out there, and I don't think one that actually is going to benefit Donald Trump. I mean, part of what he has tried to convince his base is that he's been effective at building the wall and stopping illegal immigration, even when the facts don't necessarily present that case. And now that the Supreme Court has said he was wrong on repealing DACA, it's going to be another strike. And I would say in this case, the base may be sensitive to it. If he can't deliver for them, then what good is it that they support him? So I think for the purposes of today, he's trying to obviously change the topic, and he's extremely good at it, right? And he doesn't matter how low he goes, he'll get everybody talking about his latest tweets, and we'll forget the fact that the Supreme Court just made a pretty landmark ruling on immigration.
Yeah, big ruling, no question about it. Thank you so much to Rick Davis, our political contributor from Stone Court Capital. Coming up here, we're going to talk with the head of one of the most important investment banks that there is. He is Ralph Schlosstein, CEO of Evercore. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Market upheavals.
The narrative is, at Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. Why not get road ready with a free car check worth £15 at all our stores and garages? With 25,000 weekly slots available at 700 locations, you can count on us to get you safely back on the road. Or even back beside the seaside. From MOTs to tyre fittings, there's no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Thanks to National Lottery players, South Denbighshire Community Partnership are now delivering hot meals to elderly people in the community like Bob and Sarah.
Thank you.
And £600 million of National Lottery funding is on its way to thousands more local projects across the UK during these exceptional times.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen.
Can my employer change my contract?
Am I entitled to statutory sick pay?
What is holiday pay?
When can I take annual leave?
Is my employer allowed to change the hours I work?
How do I raise an issue with my employer?
Right now, it's important to know your rights in the workplace. At ACAS, we're here to help with free impartial advice. Visit us today at acas.org.uk/rights at work.
Get your cook on with Asda. With rollbacks on Hellman's Real Mayonnaise, 705 grams was £2.75, now £2. And a 6-pack of Warburton Sandwich Thins was £1, now 75p. Wham bam, add your lunchtime ham. Find thousands of rollbacks across our stores. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Offers end 1st of July.
This is a message from the RNLI and Her Majesty's Coast Guard. Beach lifeguards can't be everywhere this summer, so they can't always protect your family, but you can. So keep an eye on your loved ones. Avoid taking risks in the sea. Don't use inflatables. In an emergency, dial 999 for the Coast Guard. Get more advice at rnli.org/beach2020. Thank you.
Let's tune in. Sports on this day. On this day in 1960, Arnold Palmer staged the greatest comeback in U.S. Open tournament history by erasing a 7-stroke final round deficit to win his only Open title by 2 strokes ahead of Jack Nicklaus.
I won the Open. The Cherry Hills is something that I enjoyed very much, and of course, some of the shots that I hit.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Decades and centuries of discrimination and racism. We've made the largest charitable contribution we've ever made. We've set aside $500,000 to match our employees' contributions to organizations committed to eliminating racism, social injustice, police brutality, etc. But that's just a beginning. I think we, like the rest of society, have underperformed in the proportion of people that we have in our firm of color, people, females, and people of minority, sexual or other orientation. And it's something that we have a huge long-term commitment to.
So, Ralph, this time in America has also drawn a lot of attention to the haves and the have-nots in society, how inequality more largely is becoming a much greater part of the discussion moving forward. We're heading into an election cycle. What role is that discussion going to play as we head into November?
Well, I think we've had up until the COVID-19 pandemic, we had a 11-year economic recovery, which, while it touched people broadly, it clearly benefited those who are in the upper strata of the country financially. And that gap has continued to widen. Even when we had 3.5% unemployment, it was still widening. And I think those of us who've been incredibly fortunate in this country should individually be prepared to foot more of the bill of taking care of those who are less fortunate, either from a healthcare point of view, from a housing point of view, from a jobs and income point of view. And so I would expect that there will be somewhat of a difference between the two candidates on taxation of the highest income people, on taxation of capital gains for individuals, which has been one of the single most important things, widening the gap between the wealthy and the not wealthy. And also perhaps some adjustment upward in corporate taxes to 25 to 28%. My guess would be, since my suspicion is whoever is elected, their term will start with quite high unemployment by the standards that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. And whatever changes might be made on a tax front, if it is Vice President Biden, that might be very well advised to phase those in over a couple of years so as not to stunt the recovery.
Ralph, you said in your business at Evercore, you're still hiring people. The business may be coming back faster than we thought because of all the support coming out of Washington. Tell us about how you're doing that business, because we tend to think of investment bankers as people who get on planes, go and visit with people directly. When we come out of this, whatever that means, are we going to be doing more deals remotely, and does that interfere with you getting the work done? What's your deal flow right now looking like?
Well, as I've said on our earnings calls, our largest business is M&A, and that business has been largely paused over the last 2 to 3 months. And the reason for that is that we're missing some of the necessary conditions for a normalized or active M&A market. We need strong equity markets to support financing for transactions. We need receptive debt markets. Because of the actions of the monetary and fiscal authorities here, those have actually pretty much returned, as I'm sure you report on every day. What isn't present yet is a clear direction for the future of the economy. And you've seen, for example, hundreds and hundreds of companies who provide earnings guidance normally pull their earnings guidance. And so if the management of a company can't tell its shareholders what to expect in terms of revenues and earnings over the next few quarters, how can we possibly expect a buyer to be more prescient or intelligent about that than the management of the company itself? So I think we need to have a little more clarity on the direction of the economy before CEOs have enough confidence to enter into transactions. Clearly, last week we represented Grubhub in its sale to Just Eat, so there are transactions that have strategic merit that are still underway. Clearly, companies that are not in challenged industries or in liquidity challenges are beginning to think more open-mindedly about major strategic initiatives, but I think there's still a little bit of a way from pulling the trigger on these.
Okay. I want to thank my colleague, Shali Bossack, for joining us. Ralph Schlesinger will stay with us because we want to focus on Washington. Some of the things he talked about, what Washington's done, how it may be affecting the marketplace. That's coming up next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Business and finance have always held surprises, but this is brand new.
The move risks fueling more demonstrations, and Stokes' concern that essential freedoms will be curbed.
Karen Muskow and Nathan Hager.
Chinese lawmakers approved national security legislation.
Expert navigation through uncharted territory.
Tell us the range of outcomes that we could see on that front.
Bloomberg Daybreak, weekday mornings at 5 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. Ralph Schlosstein, CEO of Evercore, is still with us. So, Ralph, you mentioned the fact that Washington, both fiscal and monetary, has given a lot of support to the marketplace. Let me ask you, has it really been necessary? For example, when the Fed came in and started buying corporate bonds, not ETFs, but buying corporate bonds, did that really need to be done with the spreads really blowing out that way?
Yes. I would say that there was, if you go back about 2.5 months or so, there was absolute illiquidity in the debt markets, short-term and long-term. No company could finance investment grade. The highest quality companies, when they tried to roll over their commercial paper, found it difficult to do so. So we had a real severe liquidity crisis, and the further down the credit spectrum you were, the more severe it was. And the interesting thing about what the Fed did is by being as aggressive as they were, they actually reduced the need for even more aggressive action. The fact that they stepped in and aggressively bought treasuries and mortgage-backed securities initially and broaden the aperture of things that they would be involved in from a support point of view, to include private sector businesses, municipalities, Main Street businesses. Certainly the fact that they're there as a buyer of last resort typically ensures that they don't have to use those powers as much as they otherwise would have had to use them.
Right. But Ralph, does there come a point, at some point, where it starts to distort the marketplace, where actually you can't really have price discovery because the thing that's determining the price is not the value of the asset, but actually what we think the Fed might do?
Well, there's certainly an element of watching what the Fed does, and certainly if you're a market maker or a trader, you're not going to want to be on the other side of a trade, of an investment that the Fed is making. You wouldn't want to be short things that they're interested in buying. However, I do think that the confidence provided by the Fed has allowed more normalized markets to return and to get a real two-way flow in markets that are just fundamental to the support of our economy. The irony here is this: in this particular crisis, the financial institutions are in as strong a position as they have ever been, and so the Fed supporting the liquidity of the market where financial institutions didn't play themselves provided a really important boost both to the real economy and to the markets.
Does what the Fed is doing, and for that matter, Congress as well, does it affect some of the deals that you might be looking at? As a practical matter, it's driving up all asset prices, right, without regard almost to the strength underlying of the company. Does it really affect your deal making?
Yeah, well, the hardest transactions to do right now, as you can imagine, are transactions where a significant amount of cash is involved. For example, the transaction that we were involved in last week, the Grubhub Just Eats transaction, that was a stock for stock transaction. So you have to obviously do diligence on both companies' prospects. The buyer has to do that on the seller, and the seller, because its shareholders are taking the buyer's stock, also has to do due diligence. But when you have two securities that have been roughly comparably affected by in this case, the actions of global monetary and fiscal policies, because Just Eats is a European company, it's an easier transaction to get done. I don't think until we have greater certainty about the direction of the economy that you'll see any large for cash mergers at this point.
Do the CEOs you talk to have any sense, any visibility about when we might have that greater certainty about the economy?
Well, I think the real question is going to, we're clearly in the midst of a pretty significant snapback in the economy. I think that my own view, and I think most CEOs' view, is that the damage to the economy is is greater than would be suggested by a sharp V recovery. Right. Somebody described it as what we could have as a check recovery, where we have a steep decline and then it doesn't go up quite as much.
Or a Nike swoosh, to borrow a logo from another company. Thank you so much to Ralph Schlosstein. He is CEO of Evercore. Coming up next, we're going to hear from the CEO of Delta Airlines. He is Ed Bastian, and this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. U.S. stocks are falling as investors weigh the latest employment data and new cases of COVID-19 popping up in the U.S. and China. The government reports 1.5 million people filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week, more than analysts expected. A pair of pension funds are suing Walmart, charging the nation's largest retailer with illegally mishandling opioid painkillers sold through their pharmacies for years. The plaintiffs want to recover billions spent dealing with the fallout from the opioid epidemic. And Colin Kaepernick is starting a publishing label with the blogging and essay platform Medium, and he will join their board of directors. Kaepernick Publishing will create feature content focused on race and civil rights. On Wall Street, the Dow is falling 123 points, S&P down 7, NASDAQ is up 2 points. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
For the Jewish Communal Fund, Noel Spiegel, former senior partner with Deloitte & Touche and past JCF president, discusses the advantages of a donor-advised fund over a private foundation.
There's a lot involved in having a private foundation. You need to engage attorneys, you need to engage accountants, file tax returns. At JCF, all of that is done for you. You don't have to get involved in anything other than making your contribution to your fund and then determining which grants that you want to make.
A JCF fund may be opened with a minimum $5,000 contribution of cash or appreciated securities and can be used as an alternative to or together with a private foundation.
If you have a foundation, you have to list all of the contributions that you made. Potentially anybody, because the information is public, can find out exactly which organizations a foundation has made charitable contributions to.
Let JCF simplify your philanthropy and protect your privacy. Learn more about JCF's private client group at jcfny.org.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot. Miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Gathering world-renowned experts takes effort.
We have the perfect person.
Asking them the right questions takes Carol Masser and Jason Kelly.
Is this possibly early indications of a second wave?
Bloomberg Business Week.
Silicon Valley will be forever changed by this pandemic. What's your take?
Are they paying off their balances?
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern.
That is a significant shift.
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. Earlier today, I talked with Ed Bastian, CEO of Delta Airlines, about what the pandemic has done to his business and the path back.
We're in a process of a recovery, no question about it. It's slow. It's going to take some time, but there's clear signs. The momentum we have is meaningful, and it's continuing to build. We bottomed out in mid-April with maybe only 5% of our normal customer load traveling today. That number is closer to 15%. So the optimist in me says we've tripled over the last couple months, which isn't bad, but we got a long ways to go yet. I expect that number to get up to 20% in the coming weeks. We're adding a bunch more flying, both in July and again in August. 1,000 flights a day each month added in the next couple months. And so by the end of the third quarter here, we hopefully are back to about 30% of our loads that we are carrying. So we're being very disciplined, taking good care of our people and customers on the journey, but the recovery has started.
So how much visibility do you feel you have beyond that third quarter? I mean, if you go up to 30%, does it keep rising at a fairly steady pace, or is there possibly a plateau? What do you anticipate going forward? When will you be back to essentially full usage?
Well, there's never been more uncertainty given what we're addressing with both the pandemic and the resultant economic impact. Changes in business travel patterns will also impact this industry. So our crystal ball is a little murkier than normal. But I do expect after Labor Day, it's going to be an important milestone and pivot point for us, because that's typically when business travel starts to pick up again. Right now, the vast majority of our customer base is leisure. People going out, there's some good bargains, not just in the air, but on the ground as hotels and theme parks and casinos are all opening. But we need businesses to start opening. And right now, most businesses are still largely closed, big corporate businesses. And as they start to open, hopefully after Labor Day, you'll start to see an improved mix of revenue flow, and that then will be the next stage of the recovery for us.
A key element for all businesses seeking to reopen is the confidence of customers that they will be safe when they go to the business. What are you doing at Delta? Give us a sense of what the sort of operational changes you're making to try to reassure travelers that they will be okay on your aircraft.
Well, that's our most important task here, is protecting the safety and the welfare of both our people as well as our customers. And we're doing a tremendous amount. We're accustomed to safety. Safety is in our DNA. That's what we sell. We sell safety in the sky. And we now have added another dimension of that, is safety from the virus. Safety with respect to the hygiene and the sanitization on board our aircraft. We've for those of you that haven't been out traveling, you'll see a lot of changes and I think significant improvements in the experience as you go forward. Masks are required both in the airports, as you board the plane, as you're on the plane, and masks. I get a lot of questions about masks. Masks are there not just to protect you, it's to protect others as well on board. One of the most important layers of protection we can have is using masks throughout society today. We've put distancing protocols in place. We've capped load factors. On Delta, we will not board planes more than 60% full, which guarantees the seat next to you, every seat next to you, is open on board the plane. There's no middle seats being sold at all. We've put electrostatic fogging in place before every single flight that takes off. And we've also added a considerable amount
of time and attention focused on the filtration systems on board our planes. We have HEPA filters, which are the highest quality filters one can find. It's what's used by hospitals in their operating rooms and clean room environments. HEPA filters completely circulate and recirculate the air every 2 to 4 minutes, with 50% of that air coming from fresh outside the cabin. So the air you're breathing is completely changed out every couple minutes on board the flight throughout the entire journey. And the tests and the monitors that we've been using, because we've got sensors now on board our plane to test the quality of the air, it's the purest air quality you'll find anywhere. It's 10 times better than a building environment or retail. It's really phenomenal.
That was Ed Bastian. He's the CEO of Delta Airlines. And we turn now to Brendan Case, who covers aviation for Bloomberg. So, Brendan, we heard there Ed Bastian saying by next spring, he thinks they're going to be at a break-even situation that will continue to increase the traffic. Is that realistic, and how does it compare to other airlines?
Yeah, I think it's realistic if you take a pretty upbeat view of the outlook for what's going to happen with the pandemic. You know, I think that if there's a sense that it's coming more under control, you could certainly see, continued and pretty substantial gains in flying. And if, on the other hand, you think that there could be a second wave, or, currently we're not even necessarily out of the first wave, but if things were to get worse, then I think you could see people going right back into the sort of shell that they were in earlier this year.
At the same time, Brendan, at least what little I know about the airline industry, we always look at load factor, the percentage of the aircraft that's being used on average, and they're going to have 60% load factor. Can an airline make money at a 60% load factor?
No. The U.S. airlines are geared to making money at much higher load factors. Of course, just last year, one of the main trends was that they were getting up into really high load factors, very, very full planes. They've certainly cut costs dramatically, but I don't think that they're going to be able to make money, at least not on a sustained basis, at those types of load factors. They're actually voluntarily, essentially choosing to fly at limited load factors right now because they're generally not filling the middle seat. And so, they want to give people some social distance inside the cabin. And that, I think, is probably the right move for now. Looking at the long term, whether they can make money doing that, I think that's doubtful.
Well, one question, Brendan, in the long term is, might they make money because there'll be fewer airlines? Are all the airlines going to make it in this circumstance?
Great question. Hard to answer that question in the U.S. at the moment. Certainly, in abroad, many airlines have already, declared bankruptcy or shut down. Here in the U.S., with all the government support that they've gotten, that's not likely in the near term. But to your question, over the longer term, can the market support the industry as it's currently configured? That's a real open question. I think that we can't really answer that right now. It depends a lot on what kind of demand they get in the next couple of years.
Okay, Brendan, thank you so much for joining us today. That's Brendan Case, who reports on the aviation industry for Bloomberg. Coming up, the Bank of England gave some more support to the British economy today. We talk with Bloomberg Senior Executive Editor for Economics, Stephanie Flanders. That's next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
At Honda, we've never looked to other car companies for inspiration. No, it's not a matter of an inflated ego. We just prefer listening to what people really need. For example, the new Honda Jazz Hybrid doesn't have the expected 6 airbags. It has 10, including one that prevents the driver and passenger from colliding with each other. And because we also listen to our conscience, all our safety features come as standard. No charge. Honda, the power of dreams.
Life isn't always easy at the moment. We can feel frustrated, miss loved ones, or get anxious.
But there are simple things we can all do to look after our mental well-being at this time. Every Mind Matters will get you started with personalised tips and advice from the NHS. Whether it's dealing with stress, techniques to help you relax, or simple tips for better sleep, we'll help you find what's right for you. Search Every Mind Matters today.
We've got a lot of catching up to do.
Hi there, everybody. It's lovely to be with you again.
Over 100 live games in just 6 weeks on Sky Sports. With 64 Premier League and 45 EFL Championship games, everything is still to play for. Scores to sell, relegation to avoid, Europe up for grabs, and the titles to win. Upgrade to Sky Sports today. Requires Sky Sports Premier League and football packs. See sky.com/sports for details.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Stay close to College Hoops Conversation with College Basketball Talk Podcast from NBC Sports. Join Rob Dowster and Bobby Reagan for weekly recaps of what's happening in every conference. Nostalgic flashbacks to classic games. And big picture discussions of the future of the sport.
Always knew was a legend, and you always knew was one of the great coaches because everyone always told you how great this coach was. But he never really reached point of either.
Search College Basketball Talk on TuneIn to listen.
With millions of podcasts dropping new episodes all the time, how do you keep up with all your favorites? TuneIn makes it easy. Simply head to the home screen and find your new episode section to see the latest additions.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. Cover coughs and sneezes with a tissue, then throw the tissue away. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Disinfect surfaces, bottles, handles, knobs, and other places touched often. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
ESPN Films has knocked it out of the park with Long Gone Summer, the new 30 for 30 on Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire's 1998 race to beat Roger Maris's single-season home run record. Enhance your viewing with TuneIn's Long Gone Summer channel, featuring podcasts like Baseball Tonight with me, Buster Olney, where I talk with a pitcher who gave up home runs to both sluggers. Plus, start strategizing for the 2020 MLB season with fantasy-focused baseball. Search Long Gone Summer to listen.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Wanna bet football can make you feel nostalgic?
Playing days are over, so...
On the podcast, NFL Alumni Lounge, Charlie Booth sits down with retired NFL legends to talk about their careers, life after football, and everything in between.
Mr. Darren Waller, good to have you.
Yes, sir, it's good to be here.
Dana White, welcome to the Alumni Lounge.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Big member of our NFL alumni family, and CEO of the XFL, Mr. Oliver Luck.
Charlie, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
We're here with the president, Mr. Eric Price. Good to see you.
Search NFL Alumni Lounge on TuneIn to listen.
That Europe faced as a result of the global financial crisis, and they had made that mistake of tightening fiscal policy too soon. We're really seeing a different approach this time play out, where actually they're teaching the rest of the world lessons. We have massive fiscal support, but the European central banks, we saw today another record drawdown of those cheap special long-term loans for the banking sector, another over $1 trillion euros going out the door. You know, they are not putting the brakes on the credit side of the economy when we're just starting to see economies reopen. And as I said, we're also getting that. We've talked in the past, there's going to be a bit further fiscal support. And you're seeing Germany and France in particular coming back pretty quickly. That V-shaped recovery we are seeing even on the consumption side in the latest numbers.
So how do you put together, on the one hand, the economic side, some of the stimulus being given, monetary and coming fiscal, with how you're handling COVID-19? It's hard for all of us to sort out right now how much of this is the economy, how much of this is consumer confidence as people can come back into the marketplace.
I think is a really striking lesson, especially when you look at the data coming from Germany and France, as the fear of the virus and fear of getting infected. They actually have a measure of that they've been polling people for 6 months or more or a few months in Germany. As that fear goes down, you've seen consumers go back. I talked to my colleagues in Germany, a German economist, their families are going out, eating pizza, going back to swimming pools. It's starting to feel normal in only a few weeks. And I think that's because there's confidence in the strategy, confidence that the government has got the disease under control. Where you have in the US, some states where cases are going up, or Sweden, for example, where they never had big lockdown requirements, but people had been worried about going out, you may see a much slower pace of recovery. But it's a really good example. If you get it right, you can have that V-shaped recovery that so many investors are betting on.
So give us a sense of the spectrum. If the United States is struggling, we're seeing it right now in Florida, we're seeing it in Texas, we're seeing it in Arizona. And in Germany, it appears they've done a much better job. France, they've done a better job. Sweden never tried to. Where's the UK in that spectrum?
The UK is, the Boris Johnson likes to brag often that we have the world beating. We seem to be beating the world in all the wrong ways. We have some of the highest death rate among the advanced economies, certainly one of the highest. We looks like, as I mentioned, we're going to have the biggest hit to the economy. And I think that the length of the lockdown has also been greater. And of course, people are feeling the strain of having been trapped inside for 13 or 14 weeks. So the UK is coming pretty low on the tables on pretty much every measure. Not before you even think about Brexit. I told you it's a grand slam of problems facing the economy.
Yeah, no question about it. How does Europe right now regard the United States in the way we're handling the crisis, either on the COVID-19 side or, for that matter, on the fiscal and monetary stimulus? Certainly, our government has stepped up in a big way.
Yeah, I think there's people are impressed by the level of fiscal support. Obviously, they try and look past some of the different mixed messages coming out of the White House sometimes. I think there's some respect for the decentralized model of government, that you do have states doing different things at different times. Incidentally, we may have that in every country increasingly. If we have another wave in different parts of the country or in different parts of Europe, you may get isolated lockdowns rather than national lockdowns. I think that's what most economists are thinking, that if you do start to, this battle against the virus isn't over, but the government response next time, well, maybe it'll be more nuanced, maybe it will be more place-based. And in that sense, America is similar to everywhere else.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Always great to have you with us. That is Stephanie Flanders. She's Senior Executive Editor for Economics at Bloomberg. And right now it's time for First Word News, and for that we go to Mark Crumpton.
David, thank you. A divided U.S. Supreme Court today ruled that President Trump cannot end the Obama-era program that shields 670,000 young undocumented immigrants from deportation. The justices rejected administration arguments that the DACA program is illegal. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program protects people who were brought into the country illegally as children. On Twitter, President Trump called it a, quote, horrible and politically charged decision. While many states are continuing reopening plans, several states are seeing disturbing trends. In Texas, coronavirus-related hospitalizations rose for a 7th straight day, the longest streak since the pandemic began. That brings the one-week increase up nearly 50%. And in Florida, new cases jumped 3.9%. There have been nearly 17,000 new cases over the past 7 days, the highest level ever. A warning from America's infectious disease chief, Anthony Fauci, says the upcoming NFL and college football seasons may have to be canceled. Dr. Fauci tells CNN that unless the players are isolated in a bubble and tested every day, it's hard to see how football can be played. Fewer than 5 million tourists could end up visiting Japan in 2020. That's sharply lower than the government's goal of welcoming 40 million visitors. The number of visitors to Japan tanked last month to the lowest levels on record as the pandemic largely shut down the country's borders. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. David?
Thanks so much, Mark. Coming up, we're going to go deeper into that Supreme Court immigration decision that Mark just told us about. We're going to talk with Greg Stohr, who is our Supreme Court reporter. That's coming up on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Working from home, take a little more time for breakfast. Tom Keene.
How will this pandemic change your NASDAQ?
Jonathan Farrow.
When you look at that sector, some of these companies won't exist, will they?
And Lisa Abramowitz.
They've only continued to increase the delinquencies and defaults.
Crunch data topped with fresh world news. Bloomberg Surveillance. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. And now, watch us on Bloomberg Television.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the Lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fair housing. That's HUD.gov/fair housing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio. I'm David Weston. We want to go further now into that Supreme Court ruling out just today a split decision on DACA. That's the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals policy of the Obama administration. And to take us through it, we welcome now Greg Stohr, our Supreme Court reporter. So, Greg, give us your top line on what happened here. This is certainly a setback for President Trump and his initiative to really stop DACA.
Yeah, it's a real rebuke to Trump and his administration. The court was very clear that no one doubted the authority of the Homeland Security Department to rescind the DACA program, but the way this administration did it, the way it cut corners, didn't fully consider what it was doing, what its options were, that wasn't good enough. As a formal matter, the administration still could try to rescind DACA again. As a practical matter, that's going to be awfully hard to do before the November election.
At the same time, as you point out, this was basically a statutory regulatory decision under the Administrative Procedure Act. It was not constitutional. They had the opportunity to say it violated equal protection, and actually the majority, including Chief Justice Roberts, didn't go that way. Theoretically, some administration would have the authority to come back and change it and do it right.
Yes, that is certainly the case. You're right. Only Justice Sotomayor said that there was a potential constitutional problem here. And there are other lingering questions out there. The court didn't uphold DACA in the sense that it said that the whole program was legal. It It was narrowly focused on the way Trump tried to rescind the program. There is another case out there. It is at least possible that case will eventually make it up to the Supreme Court. That is Texas and other states challenging the DACA program as a whole. We'll have to wait and see what happens to that. But, at a minimum, this is a real setback to opponents of DACA and a huge setback to the administration.
Yeah, and I thought in reading some of the opinions, it really struck me that I think the ACT administrator tried to repeal DACA, and then after it had been challenged, tried to come up with a new rationale, which you can't do under the Administrative Procedure Act. I mean, that statute is there. Congress put it there to say, you regulators, when you decide something, you better have the reasons in front of you, explain why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. What happened is that the acting Secretary of Homeland Security issued this and said, our main reason is that concern that the program is illegal. And then once litigation started, Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen put out another memo that said, and here's some other reasons why we're rescinding DACA, more policy focused. And what John Roberts said today was that at least much of that is a post hoc rationalization, and that's not the kind of thing we can consider. When you take a step like this, you have to give your reasons at the outset.
Yeah, and Greg, it does strike me that those of us in the media sometimes can paint with too broad a brush, where we say there's conservative justices, there's liberal justices, they're all going to vote one way or the other. Chief Justice Roberts now more than once has gone with the so-called liberal justices. What does that say for some of the other big decisions? We still have some big decisions coming down this term, probably this month.
Yeah, we sure do. In terms of the Chief Justice, this reminds me an awful lot of what he did last year with the census ruling, when he joined with the liberals to say that the administration's rationale for adding a citizenship question was pretextual, that it was contrived and they were hiding their real reasons. What that means going forward, good question. We have a big ruling on abortion, the first one since Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch have joined the court. It's a Louisiana case. That's still outstanding. And then we have these two cases involving subpoenas for Donald Trump's financial records. That case, certainly there are a lot of potential outcomes there. It wouldn't shock me if the Chief Justice, at least in part, agrees with the liberals in terms of whether those records have to be turned over.
Yeah, well, Greg, at least for those of us who really like the Supreme Court, this was really fun. 5-4, people joining in different parts of the opinions. Can't get much better than that. Thank you so much to Greg Storr, who really understands the Supreme Court backways and forwards. So coming up on the second hour of Balance of Power on radio, we're going to be talking about that Trump rally that's planned for this Saturday in Oklahoma with the former Speaker of the House. He is T.W. Shannon. That's coming up on the second hour of Balance of Power. Thank you for joining us for this hour, and this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Fugitive art dealer Inigo Philbrick, who eluded authorities for months before turning up in the South Pacific island of Vanuatu, faces charges that he defrauded collectors of more than $20 million in a Ponzi-like scheme. Among the artworks contested by investors is a $12.5 million painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat, a Kusama installation sold to the Saudi royal family, a 2010 Christopher Wool, and an untitled 2012 portrait of the artist Pablo Picasso by Rudolf Stingel. From cycling to long-distance running, solitary sports are on a roll during the pandemic. Next up, fishing. FishBrain, an app that connects anglers and provides data on fishing spots, catches, and conditions, saw its user base surge 23% to more than 10 million during the lockdown. In other sports news, the U.S. Open tennis tournament will be played at its usual location in Queens this year, although with no fans or New York City social calendar pomp. Visit BloombergPursuits.com for more. I'm Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
You're living in a world built on science, political and economic.
You've got to believe the labour market gets hit.
Computer and medical.
Clarify where we are on a test.
It all makes a difference.
What do you think needs to happen in terms of governmental response?
And it's all here.
He expects the virus to peak quite a long time from now.
Get your science straight.
The hand-washing campaign, is this actually a good strategy?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. It is a mixed Thursday. The Dow, the S&P higher, lower. NASDAQ is higher. S&P down 2 points right now. That is a drop of about 0.1%. The Dow down 70, down 0.3, and NASDAQ is up 17, higher by 0.2%. Stocks have been fluctuating as investors weigh the latest economic data and reports of fresh outbreaks of the coronavirus in China and the U.S. Treasuries extended their advance. The 10-year up 12.30 seconds. The yield now 0.69%. Gold is down 0.2%, $17.23 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.1%, $38.74 a barrel. S&P, as I mentioned, swinging between gains and losses after opening lower in the wake of a report that weekly U.S. jobless claims stayed above 1 million. And with more on that story, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
States processed 1.5 million more jobless claims last week as the pandemic ripped through payrolls. Applications for unemployment benefits have exceeded the once unthinkable 1 million mark on a weekly basis since mid-March. The grand total so far, more than 40 million. On a brighter note, the Philadelphia Fed's regional business outlook recovered this month after a pair of steep declines. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Zoom Video Communications says it will offer full end-to-end encryption to all users, free and paid, succumbing to pressure from members of Congress and the public who pushed the video conferencing company to bolster privacy. Zoom shares up by 1.6%. Year to date, by the way, this is a stock that is up 253%. It is 1:02 on Wall Street. Time now for the Market Drivers Report with a focus on American depository receipts. And here's Dave Wilson.
Thanks, Charlie. ADRs are falling more than U.S. shares. The S&P ADR index is down 0.5%, and the S&P 500 is lower by 0.1%. Germany's Wirecard has plummeted more than 63% in U.S. trading. The payment processor said the equivalent of about $2.1 billion in cash has gone missing. Wirecard delayed the release of annual results for the fourth time, which may lead to the termination of $2.2 billion in loans. The UK's Indivior has fallen almost 14% after soaring more than 190% in the past 2 days. Stifel said the earlier surge reflected an issue that allowed the ADR price to diverge from the price of the underlying shares. China's ZTE has risen more than 21.5%. The maker of phone network equipment said it's working on next-generation semiconductors. Analysts said the move may make ZTE less reliant on U.S. chip supplies, which have been affected by the country's trade dispute with China. And Turkey's Turkcell has gained 8.8%. A Turkish sovereign wealth fund agreed to take control of the mobile phone company, and Russian billionaire Mikhail Friedman will raise his holding. And Swedish phone company Telia is selling a 24% stake in Turkcell. Charlie?
All right, we thank you very much, Dave Wilson, keeping track of those American depository receipts. Another landlord is coming after Gap. Brookfield Property Partners, which owns shopping centers across the U.S., said in a court filing that the struggling retailer is refusing to open stores at the company's properties in Texas and owes more than $2 million in rent. Gap shares, they're up by 0.8%. Recapping S&P turning around back on the positive side, up now by 0.5 point. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Balance of Power.
Everybody in the world has one common enemy, and that's to win the war against this virus.
The first thing you do is listen to the medical professionals.
Those people that lost their pay, we want to see that pay continued.
Where the world of politics meets the world of business.
Our priority is the health and well-being and the lives of the American people.
We want to make sure that we are continuing to support our hospitals.
We've unleashed our most potent weapon of all, the courage of the American people.
Balance of Power with David Weston on Bloomberg Radio.
U.S. business goes on a listening tour about the state of inequality in our country. U.S. Trade Representative Lighthizer says he likes the U.S.-China trade deal and expects it to be honored. And President Trump heads this weekend to a campaign rally in Oklahoma amid calls for social distancing. From New York, welcome to the second hour of Bloomberg Balance of Power. I'm David Weston. President Trump has postponed his campaign rally in Oklahoma by one day to avoid its falling on Juneteenth, the day marking the end of slavery in the United States. But concerns remain about possible risks of spreading the coronavirus. Welcome now the former Speaker of the Oklahoma House of Representatives. He is T.W. Shannon. So, Mr. Shannon, thank you so much for being with us. Give us your sense about the president coming to Oklahoma for this rally. Is it wise?
Hi, Dave. Well, I just got to tell you, there are a lot of people excited about President Trump coming, and I'm one of them. Certainly, when you look at the numbers, over 1.2 million people have reserved. And I think the reason Oklahomans feel safe going to the rally is because our numbers on the COVID outbreak have been extremely low. When you look at our hospitalization rates, I think there are less than 200 people in the entire state who are in the hospital related to COVID. It's certainly safe. I think people will take precautions. And like the administration has said, if you have pre-existing conditions or you're in a high-risk category, it may not be the right place for you. But certainly there's a lot of excitement, and we're glad he's coming.
So give us some sense, if you would, what kind of precautions are being taken? Will people be expected to wear masks, for example? Will there be hand sanitizers, things like that?
Yeah, well, the Trump administration, and I'm on the advisory board for the Trump campaign, they've made it clear that they're going to provide a mask and hand sanitizer to every single person who participates. But, it's interesting to me that this whole idea of social distancing has come back, because it didn't come back until President Trump announced that he was having his rally. When I saw people looting in the streets and protesting, I didn't hear anybody complaining about social distancing. In fact, it was as if COVID had gone away. So Oklahomans know how to be safe. We know how to protect ourselves. And we're going to celebrate the Trump administration and the accomplishments of this president when he comes.
Yeah, in fairness, there were a fair number of us in the media that, when we saw those demonstrations, raised the question whether it might lead to a spike, and we don't know yet whether it still might. We may have them in places where there were those demonstrations. So some people did raise the question. Are you at all concerned for the president on some of the uptick in the cases in places like Florida, in Texas, in Arizona?
Well, in Oklahoma, we are in phase 3 of the outbreak. We're phasing out of phase 3, as a matter of fact, and I suspect by Saturday we will be. And so things are returning to normal, but people are taking extra precautions. I think there is a lot more hand washing that's happening. A lot of restaurants are still requiring masks for the people that work there. I went out to eat just this Sunday with my family, and all of the workers and servers had on masks. And so people are being safe, and that's why we're keeping our numbers low. It is possible to be safe and restart this economy, and it's happening all over. There will be an uptake, but when you look at the total number of averages of people, the cases are still very low, less than 6%, entire nationwide, rather.
Do you know, because you said you were an advisor, do you know why the Trump campaign chose this particular weekend to do this? I mean, originally, as I understand it, was scheduled for June 19th itself, Juneteenth, which has a lot of significance for some African Americans, at least. Why did they pick this weekend?
I don't know this weekend particularly why, but I think it's a righteous cause. I think when you look at what all is happening in the country right now regarding race relations, the idea that the president would choose Tulsa on Juneteenth, on the Juneteenth weekend, the celebration of it, at Tulsa, a town that was known for Black Wall Street, where you had an upper middle class of African Americans in the 1900s. I think it's a great time for him to deliver a message about unity around the country and how principles of hard work, principles of investment, and principles of community, they still work in America just like they did in Tulsa and the Greenwood District before the race massacre.
So can you give us a sense of, from someone who does support President Trump, of the attitude of African Americans, Black Americans toward President Trump who support him? Do they believe that he is in their corner?
Well, I think I know for me, I can only speak for me. I know that, when I look at the numbers, when I look at the historic low Black unemployment rates that exist in the country, when I look at the poverty in the country, how it's continued to go down, and how we've had just time and time again, this president has set a record as it relates to African American issues, even when it comes to funding historically Black colleges and universities. The proof is in the pudding. The president has made the African American community a hallmark of his administration. He's done more to advance the community. And so I think when he gets to tell that story in this campaign, I think a lot of African Americans who have traditionally voted Democrat, I think they're going to realize this is the guy that's going to help move the community forward.
All true. Before the pandemic hit, African Americans were doing better than other people in terms of wage increases. But at the same time, they got hit worse on the way down, too, once the pandemic hit. Are there special things that we should be doing that we're not doing right now for the people who are less privileged?
Well, I don't think we need a special standard, but I think when we talk about generational poverty, which is really what we're focused on, yes, I think there are some things that we can do. Number one is providing choice in education, allowing people and parents to make decisions about their children. I think it starts there. But the other is promoting strong families. If we really want a strong country, we want a strong state, you want a strong community, it starts with strong families. So I think those are two areas where I think the president has done a really good job, and that's, promoting an agenda on educational choice, but also the idea of strong families.
So but the main bottom line from your point of view is Tulsa is really looking forward to having the president on Saturday.
Well, I think when you look at the numbers, 1.2 million people have already requested tickets in a venue that serves 22,000. So, yeah, there will be a lot of excitement. I went to the first Trump rally that he had in Tulsa back in 2015. I was on board early. And I will tell you, a lot of people walked in skeptical, not sure what to expect. They knew of Donald Trump. They really didn't know where he stood on issues. The most amazing thing about Trump rallies is people walk out believing.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, it'll be quite a show, no doubt about it. So thank you so much to T.W. Shannon. He's former Speaker of the Oklahoma House. Coming up, the Supreme Court overrules the president and saves DACA. Leon Fresco of Holland and Knight takes us through that decision. That's coming up next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Reopenings.
Is there a likelihood that we have a sustained recovery?
Requirements.
Lawmakers have passed sweeping legislation.
Returns.
The president signed an executive order.
Bloomberg Daybreak with Karen Moscow and Nathan Hager.
We continue our Bloomberg Radio team coverage.
Everything you need now.
Let's head to Washington now.
Bloomberg Daybreak. Weekday mornings at 5 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesmaned the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
This July 4th, tune in to the Boston Pops right from your home. For greatest hits, finest moments, guest artists, and a special performance of a stirring salute to America's heroes. From first responders to essential workers, we honor those giving their all in this time of need. A Boston Pop salute to our heroes, presented by Bloomberg and Eaton Vance. Watch and listen from home July 4th starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and Bloomberg Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
COVID-19. Can the world reopen for business?
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like when your week off is forecast warm and sunny. Or when there's an extra unclaimed sausage left on the barbecue. Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage. Yeah, that feeling. Nice, isn't it? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
At Argos, our sale is on and so much more. Go online to shop our range of amazing deals, including tech, toys and home. And style up your home with up to half price on selected home and furniture. Visit our website to shop our full range of deals. With Argos, you're good to go. Subject to availability, conditions apply, sale ends 14th of July.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. We're temporarily changing when 60-plus London Oyster photo cards, older persons freedom passes and English National Concession Scheme passes can be used. From the 15th of June, you will only be able to use these passes from 9 a.m. on weekday mornings. This is to protect those who must travel in the morning peak and allows you to travel at times when you can safely social distance from others. For more information, search TfL Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The Toyota Hilux Invincible with a heavy-duty solid steel sump guard for just
£199 a month.
Plus deposit and an Invincible 0% APR representative. Search Hilux Invincible. Everything's invincible.
Available under personal contract purchase over 42 months when financed through Toyota Financial Services by 30th of September 2020. Deposit of £10,157 required. £12,775 optional final payment. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply.
This is Mike Golick from ESPN's Golick and Wingo. Every morning, Trey Wingo, my son, and I sit down to discuss all the news, drama, and highlights spinning the sports world that day. And with TuneIn, you can hear us whenever and wherever you go. Just search Golick and Wingo to start listening today.
Who says only the experts get to do the talking? On the Scuttlepuck NHL Hockey Podcast, irreverent outsiders Mike Bond and Dale Horde give their untrained opinions on all things hockey from the fans' perspective.
I don't know how you get those guys out of there. And Crosby, as great as he's been, it's just such a different era, so it's tough with the... he didn't have the crazy number of points that Orr, Lemieux, and Gretzky did. They just...
search Scuttlepuck on TuneIn to listen.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Stocks are fluctuating. We are trading mixed with the S&P down 2 points, down about 0.1%. The Dow is now down 75, down 0.3, while NASDAQ is up 16. That is a gain of 0.2%. 10 years up 11.30, yield 0.70%. Gold down 0.2%. 17.24 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.1%, 38.77 a barrel. Stocks stocks fluctuating as investors weigh the latest economic data and reports about fresh outbreaks of the coronavirus in China and the United States. After earnings, Kroger shares down now by 5.8%. Cruise line operator Carnival reported this morning it is down 1.8%. Recapping, equities trading mixed. NASDAQ higher, the Dow lower, S&P down 1 point, down less than 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio. I'm David Weston. Earlier today, the Supreme Court issued its final ruling on the Trump administration's attempt to reverse DACA, that Obama-era policy protecting certain undocumented aliens who entered this country as children. We welcome now Leon Fresco. He's partner at Holland & Knight. Before joining his law firm, Mr. Fresco was Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Civil Division and headed the Office of Immigration Litigation in the Department of Justice. Thanks so much, Leon, for being with us. So this is quite something. 5-4 decision, and we had Chief Justice Roberts voting with the majority. What happened here?
Well, I think in the end it came down to a very simple calculation of Justice Roberts based on where this fell, which is he either would have had to make a determination that the DACA program was illegal, which he did not want to do because in a 2012 decision called Arizona versus United States, he had intimated that he thought DACA was legal. Or he could have said it was unreviewable, Trump's decision, which is what Justice Alito said, but he didn't want to go down that road because he had already said implicitly that it was reviewable in a decision called Texas versus the United States, which ended up 4-4, which had enjoined the Obama DACA program. And so all he was really left that he could do is to question the manner in which the rescission was done, and so he formed a consensus with the liberal justices to issue that decision.
Yeah, and in fairness to Chief Justice Roberts, I would say, and this is editorializing a little bit, the administration didn't do him any favors in the way they brought this about. I mean, they came up with a reason to do it, and then when they got challenged, they came up, oh, well, here's another reason to do it. It's a different reason to do it, which is not on. You don't do that under the Administrative Procedure Act, which basically Congress has said, regulators, you got to follow some norms here. You got to be less than arbitrary and capricious.
Sure, and the issue that it ultimately comes down to, which is what was punted in this case, was the issue that was originally given by Attorney General Sessions, which is that DACA is illegal, was that enough to carry the day? And that's what Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, and Justice, oh my God, I'm losing the other one. They thought, three of the justices thought, yes, once it's illegal, that's the end of it. And Gorsuch, sorry, that's the end of it, and you don't do any APA analysis. And what Justice Roberts said is, I'm not even going to get to whether it's illegal or not, because even